And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. Welcome. Welcome to Benchley Night. You'll see over on my, yeah, that one right there. Right there on the back of the chair. Right there. Charbonneau, having come inside because it is freakishly cold up here in Vermont, ladies and gentlemen. It is freakishly cold on a Sunday evening. And even small cats who mostly enjoy being outside need to come inside because the wood stove is going. And the wood stove is, as cats know, nice. Wood stove is nice. So Charbo is here and he wants to help, of course. And it's nice that you're here. 3 of you got 1 thumbs up. Anyway, it is Benchley night, ladies and gentlemen. But before, ow, Charbonneau was just biting me. Little love bites. Before I get going, I got sent these old issues of Railroad magazine from probably I'm thinking the 1940s. By my friend Jim Westphalen, a great photographer. I guess he found them at a yard sale. And it's fascinating because I have a whole bunch of back issues of Trains magazine. There used to be 2 magazines that really catered to the railroad audience. There was Trains, which always espoused the management point of view. Oh! Sharpo just knocked Railroad to the floor, and there is Railroad, which espoused the labor point of view. So it's going to be very interesting, kind of A-Bing these old magazines back and forth. Anyway, that has nothing to do with the topic at hand. Tonight's Liberal Snowplowing beneficiary, ladies and gentlemen, is my very own Rockingham Entertainment Development. On June 14th, one of my favorite movies is going to be showing at the Bellows Falls Opera House. If you've never seen this movie, go find it. It's called Pride. It came out in 2014. It is based on a true historical thing that occurred, which was during the Thatcher era. The Welsh miners were being really hammered by the Thatcher government, and a group of gay and lesbian activists in London created Lesbians and Gays Support the Miners. Now, why they didn't call it Gays and Lesbians Support the Miners, which would be GLAM, I don't know, but I was not in charge of that, so it is Lesbians and Gays Support the Miners. But anyway, this group of activists raised a lot of money for Welsh miners, and this movie is about the actual human interaction that occurred between these 2 groups. It is one of the most heartwarming, wonderful movies I have ever seen. And anyway, our good friend John Langford, Welsh gadfly, great singer-songwriter, good artist. He was politically active in Welsh politics at that time, and he happens to be kind of in the area. So he's going to come to Bellows Falls, and we're going to do a little talking about the movie, and then we're all going to go see the movie. Because when I asked him, he was like, "Oh, that's one of my favorite movies ever." Yeah, it's based on truth. It's not exactly true, but it'll be great talking with him. But anyway, we need to raise some money to pay for his plane ticket and his hotel and the sound system for the little show he'll be doing at the Flatiron Exchange, the Flatiron Co-op here in town. So that was our beneficiary tonight. We have a few people to thank. Ladies and gentlemen. We, of course, as almost always, quilt makers extraordinaire, Bear Warders offers, Mr. Gary Pierce and Aline Cortez, and their little monster Gojira. We have Phyllis and Bill Rosser down there in the Big Apple. Thank you, Phyllis and Bill. Out there in Saxon's River, we have Ms. Martha Rowley. Ms. Martha Rowley, who is actually going to drive to the airport and pick up Mr. Langford. Thank you, Martha Rowley. We have the peripatetic. I have no idea where I think she may still be in Istanbul. Ms. Terry Hudson. The wonderful artist and stalwart friend, Ms. Catherine Fisher. Out there, fairly close to Ms. Martha Rowley, Jan and Mike Sheehy. The Milkhouse Heaters, ladies and gentlemen, an excellent duo. You must hear if you do not know them. Are almost as peripatetic as Miss Terry Hudson, but not quite. Not quite, because he has too many lobster rolls to consume, out there in Omaha, Nebraska, Mr. John T. Wilhelm. And lastly, in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where their small dog is wearing a pride banner wrapped around its midriff, because it's probably freakishly cold out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, too. And that little dog, Ginger, is thankful for that pride banner keeping her warm, or him, or whatever it is. Anyway, Ginger looks up with love and adoration, but my cousin is so very, very, very tall. Poor Ginger can never even see him. All she sees is legs disappearing up into the mist. But out there in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Mr. Nat Hunter and his wonderful wife, Elise, thank you. So tonight's reading, ladies and gentlemen, from the great Robert Benchley. Actually, Charbonneau will be totally up for this because he agrees with this sentiment very much. Very, very much. Tonight's reading, ladies and gentlemen, is entitled Down with Pigeons. Now, I read this in March of 2021 on the day I got my first vaccination against COVID-19, and I noted in the margin of the book, Vaccination Day. Back when we still had hope for humanity, ladies and gentlemen, back when we still had hope. Down with Pigeons by Mr. Robert Benchley. St. Francis of Assisi, unless I'm getting him mixed up with St. Simeon, which might be very easy to do as both their names begin with S, was very fond of birds and often had his picture taken with them, sitting on his shoulders and pecking at his wrists. That was all right if St. Francis liked it. We all have our likes and dislikes, and I have more of a feeling for dogs. However, I'm not against birds as a class. I am simply against pigeons. I do not consider pigeons birds. Excuse me, Charbo, you're going to knock that over. That's okay, says Charbo. I don't mind. No. I do not consider pigeons birds in the first place. They're more in the nature of people. People who mooch. Probably my feeling about pigeons arises from the fact that all my life I have lived in rooms where pigeons came rumbling in and out of my window. I must have a certain morbid fascination for pigeons because they follow me about so much. And with evident ill will, I am firmly convinced that they are trying to haunt me. Although I live in the middle of a very large city, well, to show you how large it is the largest in the world. I am awakened every morning. I, I, I am awakened every morning by a low gargling sound, which turns out to be the result of one or two or three pigeons wa- walking in my window and sneering at me. Granted, I am a fit subject for sneering as I lie there, possibly with one shoe on or an unattractive expression on my face. But there's something more than just a Charbot. There is something more than just a passing criticism in these birds making remarks about me. They have some ugly scheme on foot against me, and I know it. Sooner or later, it will come out, and then I can sue. This thing has been going on ever since I was in college. In our college, everybody was very proud of the pigeons. Anyone walking across the yard, well, the campus to you, please, was beset by large birds who insisted on climbing up his waistcoat and looking about in his wallet for nuts or raisins or whatever it is you feed pigeons. Bichloride would be my suggestion, but let that pass. God knows I was decent enough to them in my undergraduate days. I let them walk up and down my back, and I tried to be as nice as I could without actually letting them see that I really was not so crazy about it. I even gave them chestnuts which I wanted myself. I now regret my generosity, for good chestnuts are very hard to find these days. But somehow the word got around in pigeon circles that Benchley was anti-pigeon. They began pestering me. I would go to bed at night, tired from overstudy, and at 6:30 in the morning, the big parade would begin. The line of march was as follows. Light on Benchley's windowsill, march once in through the open window, going grumble, grumble, grumble in a sinister tone. Then out, stand on the sill, urging other pigeons to come in and take a crack at it. There's very little fun in waking up with a headache and hearing an ominous murmuring with just the suggestion of a passing shadow moving across your windowsill. No man should be asked to submit to this all his life. I once went to Venice, Italy, and there, with the rest of the tourists, stood in awe in the center of St. Mark's Piazza, gazing at the stately portals of the church and at the lovely green drinks served at Florian's for those who really didn't want to look at a church all the time. It is an age-old custom for tourists to feed corn to the pigeons and then for the pigeons to crawl all over the tourists. This has been going on without interruption ever since Americans discovered Venice. So far as the records show, no pigeon has ever failed a tourist, and no tourist has ever failed a pigeon. It is a very pretty relationship. In my case, however, it was different. In the first place, the St. Mark's pigeons, having received word from the American the St. Mark's pigeons, having received word from the American chapter of their lodge, began flying at me in such numbers and with such force as actually to endanger my life. They came in great droves, all flying low and hard, just barely skimming my hat and whirring in an ugly fashion with some idea of intimidating me. But by that time, I was not to be intimidated. And although I ducked very low and lost my hat several times, I did not give in. I even brought some corn from one of the vendors and I held it out in my hand, albeit with bad grace. But for the first time in centuries, no pigeon fell for that corn gag. I stood alone in the middle of St. Mark's Square, holding out my hand dripping with kernels of corn, and was openly and deliberately snubbed. One or two of the creatures walked up to within about 10 feet of me and gave me a nasty look, but not one gave my corn a tumble. So I decided to hell with them, and I ate the corn myself. Now, this sort of thing must be the result of a very, very definite boycott, or, in its more aggressive stage, an anti-Benchley campaign. Left to myself, I would have only the very friendliest feelings for pigeons. Too late now, but I might once have had. But having been put on my mettle, but having been put on my mettle, there is nothing that I can do now but fight back. Whatever I may be, I am not a coward. Here's my plan. I know that I'm alone in this fight, for most people like pigeons, or at any rate are not antagonized by them. But single-handedly, I will take up the cudgel, and I hope that when they grow up, my boys will carry on the battle in every cornice and every campus in the land. Whenever I meet a pigeon, whether it be on my own windowsill or walking across a public park, I will stop still and I will place my hands on my hips and I will wait. If the pigeon wants to make the first move and attack me, I will definitely strike back, even to the extent of hitting it with my open palm and knocking it senseless. Not a very difficult feat, I should think, as they seem to have very, very little sense. If they prefer to fight it out by innuendo and sneering, I will fight it out by innuendo and sneering. I have worked up a noise in my throat, which is just as unpleasant sounding as theirs. I will even take advantage of my God-given power of speech, and I will say, well, what do you want to make of it, you waddling, cooing so-and-so? I will glare at them just as they glare at me. And if they come within reach of my foot, so help me St. Francis of Assisi, I will kick at them. And the next pigeon that strolls in across my window ledge, when I am just awakening, I will catch with an especially prepared trap, and I will drag into my room, there to punch the living daylights out of him. I know that this sounds very cruel and very much as if I were an animal hater. As a matter of fact, I am such a friend of animals in general that I am practically penniless. I have been known to take in dogs who are obviously imposters and put them through college. I am a sucker for kittens, even though I know that one day they will grow into cats who will betray and traduce me. I have even been known to put in a tiger cub, which accounts for my writing this article with my, I have even been known to pat a tiger cub, which accounts for my writing this article with my left hand. But As far as pigeons go, I am through. It is a war to the death. And I have a horrible feeling that the pigeons are going to win. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that does it for tonight. That does our Robert Benchley reading. We'll be back next week with another excellent, excellent Benchley piece. Thank you so much for joining us. You take good care. And if you've got cats or pigeons around, give them a special treat, okay? Okay.